Imagine if humanity finally found a way to get rid of its biggest garbage problem. No more overflowing landfills, no more mountains of plastic. And no more garbage trucks filling entire neighborhoods with waste. Instead, we simply take all our trash and throw it into one of nature's most powerful forces. A volcano. It sounds crazy, but think about it. Volcanoes can produce temperatures hot enough to melt rocks. And lava can flow through entire landscapes, destroying almost everything in its path. So what if we used volcanoes as giant natural garbage disposal systems? What if every country on Earth started sending its trash toward active volcanoes? Could we finally destroy all our garbage, or would we accidentally create something far more dangerous? Welcome back to Future and Facts Hub. Today, we're exploring one of the strangest questions imaginable. What if we used volcanoes to destroy all our trash? And by the end of this video, you'll understand why the answer is much more complicated than simply throwing garbage into lava. Let's start with the obvious question. Would lava actually destroy our trash? The answer is sometimes, but not in the way you might imagine. Lava is extremely hot, depending on its composition and eruption conditions. Fresh lava can reach temperatures of roughly 700 to 1,200 degrees Celsius. That's hot enough to melt many metals, burn organic materials, and destroy countless objects. So imagine a giant garbage truck arriving at the edge of a volcanic crater. It opens its container, and thousands of pounds of trash slide toward the glowing lava below. Plastic bottles, cardboard, food waste, old furniture, rubber tires, electronics, clothing, and everything else disappear into the orange-red molten rock. At first, it looks like the perfect garbage disposal system. The trash catches fire, smoke rises into the sky, plastic melts. Wood burns, paper disappears, and eventually it seems like nothing remains. But there's a massive problem. Disappearing doesn't mean being destroyed. When you burn something, the material doesn't magically cease to exist. It changes form. A plastic bottle might disappear from your eyes, but its atoms don't simply vanish. They become gases, particles, ash, and other chemical compounds. And that is where our volcano garbage experiment starts getting dangerous. Let's take plastic. Modern society produces enormous amounts of plastic waste. Bottles, food packaging, shopping bags, containers, toys, and industrial materials are everywhere. Now imagine dumping all of that into a volcano. The heat would cause many plastics to melt and burn. But burning plastic can produce harmful chemicals and fine particles depending on the material and combustion conditions. Some plastics can release toxic substances when burned improperly. And unlike a modern waste incinerator, a volcano doesn't have a giant filtration system attached to it. There are no scrubbers, no controlled combustion chamber, no carefully monitored exhaust system, and no industrial filters removing dangerous particles before they enter the atmosphere. Instead, you have a volcano, and the volcano doesn't care what you're throwing into it. It could send the resulting gases and particles straight into the atmosphere. Now imagine doing this with billions of tons of garbage. Suddenly, our garbage problem hasn't disappeared. We've simply moved part of it from the ground into the air. And that's just the beginning, because trash isn't made of one material. A landfill contains thousands of different substances: food, plastic, metal, glass, paint, chemicals, batteries, electronics, medical waste, construction materials, furniture, clothing, and countless other objects. Each material behaves differently when exposed to extreme heat. Some melt, some burn. Some break apart chemically, some may survive, and some can produce dangerous compounds. So the idea that lava could simply melt everything into nothing is scientifically misleading. But let's imagine humanity ignores all of those problems. Let's say we build enormous garbage transportation networks around the planet. Instead of garbage trucks driving to landfills, they drive toward volcanoes. Millions of trucks, every single day. The logistics would be unbelievable. Think about the amount of fuel required, the roads, the workers, the transportation infrastructure, the safety systems, and the enormous distance between major cities and suitable volcanoes. You couldn't simply choose any volcano. Many volcanoes are dormant, some are extinct. Some are covered by glaciers, some are located in remote areas, and some are incredibly dangerous. An active volcano is not exactly a convenient garbage facility. Now imagine you're standing near one of these volcanoes. Thousands of trucks arrive every day. One after another, they dump their waste into the crater. The volcano is constantly surrounded by smoke, gases, ash, and garbage. Eventually, the area becomes one of the strangest industrial sites on Earth. But now something else happens. The garbage begins interfering with the natural environment around the volcano. Animals are exposed to new pollutants, plants are exposed to toxic particles, and water systems can become contaminated. Nearby communities could also be exposed to harmful air pollution. So instead of solving one environmental problem, we could create several new ones. But let's make the scenario even bigger. Imagine every major country on Earth agrees to this plan. The United States, China, India, Brazil, Japan, countries across Europe. Everyone starts using volcanoes as garbage disposal sites. At first, the world celebrates. Landfills begin shrinking. Cities look cleaner. Garbage trucks disappear from neighborhoods. Huge areas of land that were once used for waste storage are reclaimed. It sounds like a technological revolution. But then scientists notice something. The atmosphere is changing. Not because of the volcanoes alone, but because humanity is deliberately adding massive amounts of material to volcanic environments, and then allowing the resulting emissions to enter the atmosphere. And that's when governments would probably shut the experiment down. Because there's another problem. Volcanoes already release gases naturally. Volcanic eruptions and volcanic activity can release enormous quantities of gases and particles. Adding industrial waste wouldn't make the volcano stronger in the magical sense. Throwing garbage into a volcano would not cause the volcano to suddenly erupt like a Hollywood movie. But it could change the chemistry of the emissions around the disposal site. And if large quantities of waste were dumped rapidly, the resulting fires, explosions, and gas releases could create extremely dangerous local conditions. Now let's talk about something even more surprising. Would the lava actually be able to melt everything? Not necessarily. Imagine throwing a large metal object into lava. It may become extremely hot. It might deform. It could melt depending on its composition and the temperature of the lava. But not every material behaves the same way. Some materials have melting points above the temperature of particular lava flows. Others may form protective layers of solidified material around themselves. And remember, lava isn't a giant swimming pool of liquid metal. It is molten rock. It can be thick, it can move slowly, it can cool quickly at its surface. And once the outer layer cools, it can form a solid crust. So a garbage dump inside a volcanic environment could eventually become a bizarre mixture of rock, metal, glass, ash, and partially transformed waste. Instead of creating pure molten nothingness, we might create a permanent geological garbage deposit. And here's something even stranger. Some garbage could potentially become trapped inside cooled lava. Imagine thousands of years from now. A future civilization explores an ancient volcanic region. Scientists drill into layers of rock. They expect to find evidence of ancient volcanic activity. Instead, they discover a plastic bottle, a smartphone, a car part, a piece of aluminum. Our trash could literally become part of the geological record. Future scientists might look at Earth's rocks and realize that humanity once tried to bury its garbage inside volcanoes. But let's go back to the present. Suppose we wanted to make this system safe. We could build specialized facilities near volcanoes. Instead of throwing raw garbage directly into lava, we could process it first. Separate metals, separate plastics, remove batteries, remove chemicals, remove hazardous materials. And then use controlled high-temperature systems to process the remaining waste. And suddenly, we're not really using the volcano anymore. We're basically building an industrial waste treatment facility next to one. And that tells us something important. The problem isn't that we don't have enough heat. The problem is controlling what happens to the waste. Modern waste incineration can already use extremely high temperatures under controlled conditions. Facilities can monitor emissions, use filters and pollution control systems, recover energy from waste, manage ash, and control the process. A volcano doesn't offer that level of control. So nature's most powerful furnace isn't necessarily the best garbage disposal system. But what about food waste? That would be much easier. Food contains organic material that can break down or burn. But even then, dumping huge amounts of food waste into volcanic environments would create problems. Organic waste contains water, and a lot of it. When water comes into contact with extremely hot material, it can rapidly turn into steam. That can create dangerous explosions under certain conditions. Now imagine enormous quantities of wet garbage being dumped onto extremely hot volcanic material. The result wouldn't necessarily be a peaceful disappearance. It could produce sudden bursts of steam and debris. And if containers or sealed objects were involved, the danger could increase further. Now think about batteries. Modern garbage contains millions of batteries from phones, laptops, electric vehicles, power banks, and household devices. Some batteries can become unstable when heated. And a volcano is probably one of the worst places you could intentionally expose them to extreme temperatures. A damaged battery can release energy rapidly. So imagine thousands of batteries entering a high-temperature environment together. You wouldn't have a clean garbage disposal system. You'd have a chaotic chemical and thermal reaction. And then there's electronic waste. Electronic waste contains valuable materials like copper, aluminum, gold, and other recoverable components. But it can also contain hazardous substances. Destroying electronics by uncontrolled burning means potentially releasing contaminants rather than recovering the useful materials. In other words, we would be throwing away resources. Inside an old smartphone are materials that required mining, energy, transportation, and manufacturing. If we simply burn or melt the phone, we're losing much of the economic value that went into creating it. That's one of the biggest reasons modern waste management is moving toward recycling and recovery instead of simply destroying everything. Now imagine the world has been using volcanoes for garbage disposal for 20 years. At first, everyone thinks it's a success. But eventually, the volcanic sites become enormous contaminated zones. Roads are packed with garbage trucks. Air quality becomes a major concern. Local ecosystems suffer. Tourism disappears. Communities protest. And governments begin spending billions of dollars trying to clean up a problem that was supposed to solve another problem. Eventually, humanity realizes something. We don't actually need volcanoes. We need better waste management. We need to produce less unnecessary waste. We need better recycling. We need materials designed to be reused. We need better systems for electronic waste. We need safer ways to handle hazardous materials. And we need to stop treating the planet like a giant trash can. But here's the biggest twist in our entire thought experiment. What if we didn't use natural volcanoes? What if we built artificial volcanoes? Imagine a giant industrial facility designed to imitate the extreme heat of volcanic lava. Instead of relying on unpredictable natural eruptions, engineers control the temperature. Robots sort the garbage. Machines remove dangerous chemicals. Metals are recovered. Organic material is processed. Remaining waste enters a controlled high-temperature chamber. The gases are captured. Filters remove pollutants. Energy is recovered. Now that idea starts sounding much more realistic. In fact, humans already use high-temperature industrial systems to process certain types of waste. The future could make these systems even more efficient. Instead of asking, how do we throw all our garbage into a volcano? The better question might be, how do we design technology that gives us the useful parts of extreme heat without the dangers of a real volcano? And that is where the future of waste management becomes fascinating. Imagine a city where almost nothing goes to a landfill. Garbage trucks arrive at automated processing centers. Artificial intelligence identifies every object. Plastic is separated by type. Metal is recovered. Glass is reused. Organic waste is converted into useful products. Electronic components are dismantled by robots. Only the materials that truly cannot be reused are sent to controlled thermal processing. The entire system operates like a giant artificial ecosystem. Nothing is simply thrown away. Everything has a destination. That could be the real future. Not volcanoes, but circular waste systems. A world where products are designed from the beginning to be repaired, reused, recycled, and recovered. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Humanity doesn't really have a garbage problem. We have a design problem. We created products that are often cheap to produce but difficult to reuse. We created packaging designed to be used for minutes, but remain in the environment for far longer. We created electronic devices that can become obsolete even when many of their components still work. And then we ask, where can we put everything? Maybe the future answer isn't a bigger landfill. Maybe it isn't a volcano. Maybe it's designing a world where we create dramatically less waste in the first place. So, what would really happen if we used volcanoes to destroy all our trash? We wouldn't create a magical garbage disposal system. We wouldn't make our waste disappear. We wouldn't solve pollution. Instead, we'd risk replacing one environmental problem with another. Some trash would burn. Some would melt. Some would chemically transform. Some could remain. And harmful gases and particles could become a serious concern. The volcano would not magically erase the atoms that make up our garbage. It would simply transform them. And that's the fundamental lesson. Matter doesn't disappear just because you can't see it anymore. When plastic burns, it becomes other substances. When metal melts, it remains metal. When organic material burns, its atoms move into gases, ash, and other compounds. The trash doesn't vanish. It changes form. And perhaps that's why this crazy thought experiment is actually useful. Because every day, millions of people throw something into a garbage can and never think about it again. The trash disappears from your house, but it doesn't disappear from Earth. It goes somewhere. A landfill, a recycling facility, an incinerator, a processing plant, or sometimes, unfortunately, into the environment. So the next time you throw something away, remember this. There is no real place called away. There is only somewhere else. And perhaps one day, technology will give humanity a way to deal with waste that is cleaner, smarter, and far more efficient than anything we have today. Maybe we won't need to throw our trash into volcanoes. Maybe we'll build systems that make the idea completely unnecessary. And maybe the ultimate goal won't be finding a better place to hide our garbage. It will be creating a world where we don't produce so much of it in the first place. This has been Future and Facts Hub. If you enjoyed this crazy thought experiment, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Because there are countless impossible questions waiting to be explored. And next time, we're going to take another impossible idea and push it to the extreme. Until then, keep questioning everything.